Pleasant evening, everybody. We want to welcome you to this special session that has been organized by the men, not just for men, but for everybody. All of us need to be more aware of how we can manage our finances. So welcome one, welcome all. We're not going to have very many preliminaries before our session because we want to leave as much time as possible. So all of you who have joined us, we want to welcome you. And I know that we're in for a wonderful, informative presentation. But before we go any further, we are going to bow our heads. Dear Lord, as we commence this session, we ask for your presence. May your name be glorified. May we learn. May we apply. And by faith, may we manage the finances and the resources that you have provided for us. Bless this entire session. Bless our facilitator. May everything work well. And may we all have a wonderful sitting in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, now we're going to have two songs that will be sung by an a cappella group. And then we're going to get ready for our main feature. And so this evening, we're going to have Jehovah Shalom a cappella group. And they are going to bless our hearts with two items of music, two hymns, before we get ready for our main feature.
As we worship together with you. And the first song that we are going to start with is Higher Ground. I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day, still praying out, I onward bound, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground, Lord, lift me up, and I shall stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher place that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. My heart has no desire to stay where doubts arise and fears dismay.
Fear no dismay, whatever betide, God will take care of you. Beneath His wings of love abide, God will take care of you. God will take care of you through every day, all the way. He will take care of you. God will take care of you. No matter what may be the test, God will take care of you. Lean weary one upon His face, God will take care of you. God will take care of you through every day, all the way. He will take care of you. God will take care of you. Oh, God will take care of you through every day, all the way. He will take care of you. God will take care of you.
That was lovely music and a powerful message. God will take care of you. I want to pray at this time before we get ready for our main feature. And so wherever you are, bow your head, close your eyes as we pray. Dear Lord, we want to thank you for that comforting song in these difficult times. God will take care of you. Dear Lord, many of us come with many different cares, fears, anxiety, worries. Many of us are concerned about the future, our finances, our jobs. Many of us have family challenges. Some of us may be getting discouraged. Some of us may be battling illness. So many different challenges, but it's so comforting to know that we can cast all our cares on you because you care for us. Grant us that faith that we need to trust you, even though the future looks bleak. May our hearts be fixed and our minds be fixed on you and on your word. Grant us the faith that we need to remain faithful to you. And as we continue in this evening, we ask for your presence and for your Spirit's power, so that as we hear the presentation, dear Lord, we will be inspired to apply wisdom and to spend and use your resources according to your will. Bless again, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, human beings like routine. We like to know that things are working exactly how we would want them to work. We like to be in control. And unfortunately, this COVID situation, the pandemic, has made lots of changes in our lives. It has made life very unpredictable. It's very uncertain. It's a challenging time. And it is a time for us to be informed on how we can manage our lives. And so this evening, it's a privilege for us to be here on this platform, to be enlightened on how we can use God's resources wisely. Now, there'll be an opportunity for questions. You can place your questions in the chat, and those questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Now, our facilitator tonight was born in St. Vincent, and he has been a Seventh-day Adventist for all of his life. He completed his Bachelor's of Science degree in Economics and Management in 1996. That's at the University of the West Indies. And a Master's degree in International Economics, Banking and Finance from the Cardiff University in the United Kingdom in 2004. Then another Master's of Science degree in Economics and Applied Econometrics from the University of Delaware in the United States of America in 2010. And he completed all of these studies by the grace of God with honors. And so he is an accomplished, educated, and well-trained facilitator this evening. He has been employed at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for many years, and presently he holds a position of specialist in the Banking Supervision Department of the Central Bank. And he is also an advisor to the Governor of the Central Bank. It is my privilege to welcome to us an economist, a brother, a man of God, Brother Sean Williams. And tonight I will invite him to address us as he speaks to us on the topic of how to manage our finances in these difficult times. And so it's my privilege, Brother Williams, to welcome you, and I invite you now to address us. And I know we'll be in for an engaging and informative session. So over to you at this time. Welcome and God bless.
Okay, thank you, Brother Bedford. Please allow me to share my screen. So just hold on a while. Let me get the presentation up. Okay, so tonight we'll be speaking about money management and retirement planning. Now, money management is always an important topic, even more so during time like this, when we have the COVID pandemic and the harsh realities which it has onset among us, especially for those who are self-employed in the tourism industry. I hope you will benefit from this, and if there are any questions or comments, you can address these at the end of the presentation. So let's begin. Okay. So we're looking at how to manage your money better, and we're going to look at 10 tips to improve your financial habits. The number one tip is to have a budget. This is very important. I would say making a budget is certainly a tedious process. After all, it is not the most exciting thing having to sit down, listing all your expenses, adding up those expenses, and making sure everything lines up. There are certainly more exciting things which you can do. However, if you're bad with money, if you're not good at money management, consider budgeting as a necessary bitter pill which you must take in order to get well. If you're bad with money and all it takes to get your spending on track is a few hours working a budget each month, then the question is, why won't you do it? Instead of focusing on the process of creating a budget, instead of looking at the tediousness of it, focus on the value that budgeting will bring to your life. So do not focus on the process, focus on the end result, focus on the value. Do not focus on the process, instead focus on the value, see what benefit it will bring, look at the end result. Creating a monthly budget, what does this do for you? Having a budget helps you to manage your money. That's an important area. It helps you to control your spending, save more money, pay off debt, or stay out of debt. Now, with all of these advantages, why won't you want to have a budget? Why won't you want to create a budget? So let's see how you can go about doing this, creating a monthly budget. Now, what is a budget? Now, we can define this as an itemized list of expected income and expenses that help you to plan how your money will be spent or saved. So you're itemizing what are your expected income, and these you'll be familiar with, having worked over a period of time. And you can always look at your pay stubs and stuff like that. And also you're looking at your expected monthly expenses. And the plan is that by looking at the list of your income versus your expenses, it should put you in a position so as to plan how your money will be spent or saved, as well as track your actual spending habits. Now, the word budget, it may have taken on a slightly negative connotation over the years, invoking an image of pinching pennies or limited spending. The general outline or formula for the budget is as follows. Now, this is the formula or the outline. It's your total expected monthly income, subtract your total expected monthly expenses, and this would then be equal to your total expected monthly surplus or shortage. Now, where your expenses are less than your income, where your income is greater, you would have a monthly surplus. And where your expenses are greater than your monthly income, you would then have a shortage. Now, a general rule of thumb is the 75-25% rule for persons with families and household. That is, it is recommended that 75% of your income be relegated to expenses and 25% be relegated to savings. Now, if you're a younger person and you do not have a family or you do not have a household, the amount of income relegated to expenses should be less. So it should be somewhere around 50 to 60%, and the amount saved should then be around 40 to 50%. That's a general rule you can bear in mind. Look at creating a monthly budget. Let's look at the how-to. Now, what is the purpose of the budget? Now, consider the budget as a tool, and you're going to use this tool so as to gain a better and more accurate insight into your spending habits. So think of it as a tool, and you're going to learn to use that tool. It's a skill set which you're learning to develop. Now, by listing all of your sources of income against all of your monthly expenditure, you will get a true picture of what your personal cash flow is, which will allow you to make better and more informed financial decisions. So you're putting down your expected income, your expected expenses, and this would give you a better picture of what your personal cash flow is. Hence, this will allow you to make more informed financial decisions, and hence put you in a stronger position. An accurate budget will also help you to better understand what you can and cannot afford. And there's a difference between being able to buy something and being able to afford something. The budget will tell you what you can afford based on your income stream and your monthly commitments. Okay, so we continue with creating a monthly budget. How to do the monthly budget. Now, you would gather all of your receipts, like your pay stubs, your credit card bills, your telephone bill, your electricity bill, and any other information which will help you to make the best and most accurate estimate of your expected income and spending. So you want an accurate estimate of your expected income, and you also want an accurate estimate of your expected expenses. And from this, you can make a projection as to what kind of surplus you want within a given month. And then you're going to manage your spending so as to achieve that given surplus. So throughout the month, as you notice that for a particular item, spending is rising a bit too much, you would seek to cut back on the spending where you can, so as to reach that particular monthly surplus. Okay, we continue with creating a monthly budget, and this time we're going to look at the actual template, something which you can actually use in creating your own budget. Remember our general formula: income minus expenses would be equal to your shortage or your surplus. Where your expenses are greater than your income, this means that there's a shortage. Where your expenses are less than your income, this means you will have a surplus. And remember the 75%, 25% rule. And this is a general rule which you can use. And this applies to like household, family. 75% of your income should be allocated to expenses and 25% towards savings. So that means when you look at your surplus, you should be able to see around 25% there, which you can then allocate towards savings and investment. Now let's look at the actual template. In this first column here, we have, and we're going to start with in the other slide, we'll have the expenses. Wow, let me go back. Oh, good. So see here, the first column has your income here. It's going to list all your income. The second has your monthly budgeted, that is what you're expecting. And this is informed by your past income stream. And then the last column here has your monthly actual, that is your actual income during that month. And then you can compare this to your budgeted so as to see what the variance is and whether you are meeting your monthly target, that is your net income, which should be a monthly surplus. So let's look at some of the items under the income. Here you would have your salary, and this would be your net salary after taking out your Social Security money. You would place that there. Interest income, like if you have any CDs, CDs are certificate of deposits, sometimes known as time deposits. So if that's an income source, you list that there. If you have any other investment income, that is, if you invest in treasury bills from the government, then the income, you place that there. If you have shares in company and they pay a dividend, then that goes there also. And then you would have your total income here, and think of this as your gross. Then you make a deduction from your total income. We know your tithes and offering comes out, that comes out from the top, and then you would have your net income. This is what you would have available for spending. And remember the rule, we should have 75% going towards expenditure and 25% towards savings. Okay, let's continue. We are continuing with the template. And here we have your expenses. This is in the first column. Now I have listed certain expenses here, but your expenses may be similar or they may be different. It depends on what your habits are. Again, we will have what your monthly budgeted is and your monthly actuals. And down here in the final row, we have what's your monthly surplus and your monthly shortage. In this case, we're not looking for shortage. We want you to plan for surplus, because it is from your surplus you will then save and invest and make retirement planning. So you're going to aim for a surplus. Now, when you look at your expenses, you see various types of expenses. And you can see that there will be various discretion as regards controlling the expenses. For example, let's look at the first one here, rent, mortgage. So let's look at mortgage. So you will say, what kind of discretion do I have as regards mortgage? Now, what you can do when you're doing your mortgage, you can shop around at various banks so that you get the best offer. That is the kind of discretion you have there. If you're renting, you can go throughout the length and breadth of the country, island, village, looking for the various prices of apartment. That's the kind of discretion you will have there. Like for food, you can take control of that rather quickly. So if you see that your food bill is too high, like for your lunch, you can say, okay, going forward, I'm going to try to control that. Maybe I'm going to carry food to work on some days, or maybe I'm going to look for a vendor with more reasonable prices. So that is what is meant by how you would control your expenses so as to achieve a given monthly surplus, because expenses are normally over what you have most control. You would have some control over income also, but that's less. You can negotiate for a raise on your job. You can go and speak to your boss about that. Or you can look for alternate employment, take up a second job. So there is some control there, but normally the major control you would have would be as regards your expenses. Let's continue. Now let's look at making decisions based on your monthly budget. So let's assume now you have completed your monthly budget and your actual. So you have your projected monthly surplus and you have your actuals. So now let's look at how you will make decisions based on your results. Suppose you find that at the end of the month, you are consistently spending more than you're bringing in. Now I have it in summarized version here. Let's suppose you have this here, like a total monthly income, and this is an average 3,000, but your total monthly expenses, that comes up to 5,000. So you're actually running a monthly shortage of $2,000. Now, what should you do in this case so as to correct this situation? Any takers? Anyone would like to comment on that? Like, what are some of the things you can possibly do so as to correct a situation like that?
Cut back on unnecessary items that may not be as necessary.
That's an excellent answer. Certainly, thank you. Good. Are there any other answers? But that is certainly correct.
Stick to your needs and not your wants.
Perfect. So you concentrate on your needs and not your wants, so you cut back on excess. Those answers are perfectly correct. So and this is where the decision making comes in. When you look at your result, then you must make decision based on the result. If the results are not panning out as planned, so it might be time to take a closer look at where you're spending your money and adjust those areas where you can to make up the difference. This is certainly correct. Those answers were correct and on point. Thank you. So let's continue with this decision-making thing. Now let's suppose it's the other way around. If you consistently have money left over every month, so you're not running a surplus, you now have the opportunity to decide what to do with the extra cash. And let's look at this as a typical average. Let's say your monthly income is 3,000, but your total monthly expenses is 2,000. So you have a surplus of $1,000 every month. What should you do in that case? This is where you then make decisions based on your monthly budget. Any takers? So we now have a surplus. What do you do when you have a surplus?
Invest your money.
Good answer. Any other comments? Now I can't see the chat, but that's a good answer. So that's certainly right. So perhaps you need to build up an emergency or rainy day fund. Now remember I tell you about that 75%, 25% rule. So 75% of your income, we're talking about a family, a household, should go towards expenses. If you're a younger or single person, it should actually be less. And 25% should go towards saving. Now of that saving, that 25%, that can be further split up into 15% for investment and 10% for savings. So what you do in this case is that you would look at what your monthly income are in terms of your saving. Look at what your monthly income are. So let's say you make $1,000 every month. And what is recommended? You would save your income for 6 months. So that means you would save until you reach $6,000. And you would put that aside. And that would be like your emergency or rainy day fund. This is in the event there is sickness in the family, or you fall sick, or you lose your job. Let's say you fall out of favor with your bosses and you're fired. At least you have 6 months of income set aside. And it is believed that 6 months will give you adequate time so as to find a different job or maybe do something else. It will give you adequate time so as to sort yourself out. You can also start an investment fund that is contributing to additional income. But of course, with this, depending on where you're going, you will need to acquire certain skill and advice so as to do it right and make sure the outcome is as you have planned, right? Because investment involves a certain degree of risk. And where there is risk, there is probability of loss. I'm not saying this to frighten you, but I'm just saying this so that you get your ducks lined up in order. So you're going to do investment. Maybe you want to start buying shares. It means you'd have to understand financial statement a bit. So you might have to develop certain competence there. There's nothing far-fetched or difficult about that. Or you may need to seek advice from persons so as to get that right. You can also use the fund to pay off certain loans faster. Or perhaps you can start saving up for a special or large purchase. So these are things you can do when you have a surplus. So good, so we have covered. So we have looked at creating this budget. We have looked at making decisions based on the outcome. Let's look at what the other tips are. So tip number 2, use your budget. And this is important. Your budget, it is useless if you make it and then let it collect dust in a folder tucked away in your bookshelf or file cabinet. So you must use this often and regularly. Refer to it throughout the month to help guide your spending decision. So as the month progresses, you look at your budget, you see what you have allocated, and you see how the expenses are trending and compare that to what you have allocated, because then you can make a difference at that point. So let's say you're to food, you had allocated $500, but in week 1 you kind of see it's already $300. Then that should mean that you have to make certain decisions there if you want to stay on track and achieve that monthly surplus. Also, you want to update your budget as you pay bills and spend on other monthly expenses. At any given time during the month, you should have an idea of how much money you're able to spend, considering any expenses you have left to pay. So use your budget. Don't just create it and then tuck it away somewhere and never look at it again. Use it actively so as to achieve your goal. Tip number 3, make wise use of any surplus or net income you may achieve. And I don't want to say maybe that you will achieve, right? We have to be positive as Christians. Huh? We serve a mighty God. Now, a critical part of your budget is the net income or surplus money left after you subtract your expenses from your income. This is, of course, when you achieve it. If you have any money left over, you should use it wisely, as in, you may decide you want to reward yourself with a portion of it. So you may decide, okay, I want to travel and see some families in Virgin Islands or wherever. Of course, you can do this, but don't go overboard with this, right? Be careful. You want to use it for like savings, investment, and retirement planning. And retirement planning is important because remember, when you are young, you have to take care of yourself being a young or middle-aged person, but at the same time, you have to take care of the older version of you, of your old man, when you become old. Because when you're old and retire, you will no longer have a source of income. It will be rather small. So you want to start your retire, you want to use this surplus income or this net income so as to do some retirement planning by means of investment. Okay, good. Let's look at tip number 4, track your spending. Small purchases here and there, they add up quickly. And before you know it, you have overspent your budget. So it's important when you make your budget, stick to your budget. Keep that surplus money in mind, that net income, because you have uses for that. Start tracking your spending to discover places where you may be unknowingly overspending. So keep track of your spending. That's tip number 4. Save your receipts and write your purchases in your diary or journal, categorizing them so that you can identify areas where you have a hard time keeping your spending on track. These are all geared towards keeping your spending on track and achieving that targeted surplus income at the end of the month, because you have plans and use for that money, don't you? Good. Tip number 5. Do not easily commit to any new monthly recurring bill. You're not going to easily, it's not because you may have the money available why you're going to do it. Doesn't mean because you have the money to do it means that you can afford it. You would know if you can afford it based on your budget when looking at your income and your associated expenses. That is when you know whether you can afford it. Just because you qualify for a loan does not mean you have to take one, unless it fits, unless it's necessary and it fits in with your long-term goals. Think long and carefully about any recurring financial commitment and whether it fits in with your goal. It is up to you to make decisions regarding whether a monthly payment is affordable based on your income and monthly obligation. You would decide this by looking at your budget. And tip number 6, make sure you're paying the best price. You can make the most of your money by comparison shopping, ensuring you're paying the lowest price for products and services. And do not be ashamed of this. Do comparison shopping. Get the most out of your money. Think of how long you have to go and work in somebody's office just to gain a few dollars. And within a few seconds, you want to just dash that all away. No, your money must, when it leaves your hand, it's because you're getting value for money. So do comparison shopping. If you're looking for a mortgage, go to all the banks. Walk from one to the next, find out what their rates are, what their terms are, and choose the one that suits you best. If you're doing groceries, do comparison shopping. So you go to Value Map, then you walk down to Rams, and you see where you're getting value for your money. Because when you can do this, it means that you're cutting back on your expenses. Your monthly surplus will then be bigger, and then you can use that to save, invest, retirement planning, and so forth. That is why this is important. Also, you want to look for discounts, coupons, and cheaper alternatives wherever you can. Spend your money wisely. Get the best value for your money. Don't work hard for it and then just throw it away. Don't do that. Let's look at tip number 7. Save up for big purchases. Now, this is a habit we used to have, but then we sort of dash it away when people used to save up for big purchases. Delaying gratification, this will go a long way in helping you being better with money. When you put off large purchases, rather than putting the purchase on a credit card, you will give yourself time to evaluate whether the purchase is necessary and even more time to compare prices. So there are 2 advantages there in terms of delaying gratification. Well, 3, you ain't going to use an expensive credit card. You're going to be putting away money for that particular purchase. Number 2, it gives you more time to also think, is this really necessary? Do I really need this? Is this a need or a want? How does this fit in with my long-term plan? And it gives you more time for comparison shopping. Also, by saving up rather than using credit, you avoid paying interest on the purchase. This is another advantage. Great. Tip number 8, limit your credit card purchases. Now, credit cards, they are a bad spender's worst enemy. If you're a bad spender, they are your worst enemies. I'm not saying credit cards are bad, but if you're a bad spender, it can do a number on you. When you run out of cash, if you're a bad spender, you simply turn to your credit cards without considering whether you can afford to pay the balance. Resist the urge to use your credit cards for purchases you can't afford, especially on items you don't really need. What is tip number 9? Contribute to savings regularly. There hold on, let me see if there's any comments in the chat. I can't see the chat. This thing is glowing orange. Let me click on it and see what's there. No, okay. Hold on, let me see. Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, good. So tip number 9, contribute to savings regularly. This is another habit we sort of left along the way line. There was a time when our parents and grandparents, they saved regularly. My father normally say, if you make $1, you're supposed to save something out of that dollar. And remember the general tip we give for family and household, 75% of your income towards expenses. So if you're earning $1,000, 750 to cover your family expenses, 25% goes into savings. Of that 25%, we said you can further have the rule of 15 and 10. You have 15% for investment and you have 10% for saving. That is your emergency fund. That is, you save up to 6 months of your salary and you can put that in a CD or something like that where it can be accessed if you need it. And at the same time, it's going to bring you some interest income. It won't be any big money. It brings you a couple of dollars. But in this kind of business, except for your salary, you ain't going to get any big money. You will get a bit of money here and there, and together it make up something. It can help to pay the electricity bill or the water bill or something like that. But you take it wherever you have and you give God thanks and praises, right? Can't be too greedy in life, they say. Okay. So you want to deposit money into your account each month, as this will help you build healthy financial habits. Get in the habit of saving every month. As you make your surplus, you want to put something into your saving account. Now, you should have 2 accounts, right? You should have your current account or your electronic account. That is where they send your salary to. Normally, your debit card is tied to that. If that's the only account you have, you want to open up a saving account where each month you're going to take something from your current account and you're going to put that in your saving account. And once you put that in your saving account, you can touch on that easily. You make sure the debit card is tied to it so that you won't draw it out by accident. But sometimes that differentiation, it kind of helps you develop the habit of saving, and that's important so that you can get your surplus going and you can use that for investment and retirement planning. The more you make these habits, and the fact being, number 10, being good with money takes practice. So you need some patience. In the beginning, you may not be used to planning ahead and putting off purchases until you can afford them. But with time, you can develop this, and through God's grace. The more you make these habits part of your daily life, the easier it is to manage your money and the better off your finances will be. And let's then summarize these tips and ask God for the grace to put them in place. So have a budget, use your budget, make wise use of any surplus or net income you may achieve. That's important. Track your spending. Keep track of your spending so that you keep it in line with your budget projection so that you can achieve your monthly surplus or net income. Do not easily commit to any new monthly recurring bill. You must give a lot of thought to it. It must be important, necessary. It must fit in with your overall goal. You do not go and take out a loan simply because you qualify for one. That's important. Make sure you are paying the best price. Don't fool around with your money. You work hard for your money. You have to go to a job from 8 to 4 or 5. You have to put up with sometimes miserable coworkers. You have to be at the behest of your bosses. So when you earn it, make sure you get value for it. So do your comparison shopping. Look at who gives you the better price and the better deal. This is in the interest of lowering your expenses and getting a surplus or net income at the end of the month, which can then go towards your saving, investment, and retirement planning. Also save up for big purchases. Develop this habit. Develop your own layaway plan and limit your credit card purchases. The reason credit card purchases, they are expensive, and you don't want to develop that habit of, if you don't have the money, then you just use your credit card. You want to be master of your credit card. You don't want your credit card to be the master of you. And of course, contribute to savings regularly, and they should be monthly. And then there's the, hold on. And being good with money, it takes practice. So be patient, but serious with yourself, because money is serious business. And then let's move on a bit to retirement planning. Now, if you're into formal employment, whether you're working with the public or private sector, Social Security deductions will be taken directly from your salary. And this is part of retirement planning, but this may not be enough for you. You may have to supplement this with your budgeting. And we're going to talk about this a bit later. That's another point. Now, if you're self-employed, this is important. You should be making contributions to Social Security. You would need to have a conversation with the people at Social Security so as to find out the amount and how long you should be making this in order to receive a pension, because there may come the time when you can no longer go out and work, and you would want your pension to be there to support you. Now, if your company have a pension plan, you would want to be a part of that pension plan. Also, there are pension products that have been offered by various insurance companies, but you would need to do your investigation, your analysis, and to make an informed decision about this to see what it is in your best interest. And of course, you want to invest your surplus or net income from your monthly budgets. Your month-on-month budget, the surplus income you get, you want to do some investing here as regards your retirement plan. And as I said before, you may need to develop certain investment skills depending on the area you're going into, and seek advice. This is not something you can't do. It's just that you have to invest the time so as to make it happen and to increase the chances of things turning out as planned and expected. Now, this is the end. I thank you for listening. And at this time, I'm glad to entertain any further questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Brother Williams, for a very practical and engaging presentation. Indeed, I learned quite a lot. And so I want to give the opportunity to those who have some questions. And so at this time, well, there's one question in the chat. Probably I can just read the question and then you can respond to it. The question is, what advice would you give on signing loans or bonds for persons?
Advice on signing loans or bonds for persons. Now, you have to be careful with this. Now, as Christians, we should help each other out. That's important. We want to help out one another, but God says you have to be as wise as serpent and harmless as dove. Now, when you're signing a loan for someone, it means if the person, or you're standing as secure as a guarantor or surety, it means if the persons fail to perform, you would then have to stand responsibility for that loan. That's an awful responsibility. So you would have to have enough trust and confidence in that person so as to sign for that person. So it really depends on your relationship with that person, how well you know that person, and whether you trust that person well enough so as to perform that task. So I don't have a direct yes or no. It depends on your relationship with that person and what risks you're willing to take, because it is a risk. Because if the person does not perform as set out in the loan agreement, then you would have to stand responsibility. So it depends. So the best answer I can give in that case.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe some of you may have some questions. So I guess you can go to the feature and raise hands so that we can address those questions.
Elder Lake, go ahead.
Hello, good night. With regard to credit card,
Good night.
if you default in your credit card payments, and what could be the outcome in terms of you want to close that card, and you're not in the position to pay off the card, but you want to close that card. Could the card be closed without you before you pay it off? And if you don't pay it off, what is the consequence of that?
Okay, that's a good question. So let's assume you have a credit card, you have a balance on your credit card, and there has been a default, which means you're not making payment as arranged with your financial institution. Now you want to close that credit card. Now, most institutions, they would want you to pay off the balance before you can close that credit card. What can you do? You would probably have to have this. Well, you would have to engage your financial institution. Tell them what you want to do. Tell them that you want to pay off the balance. If they can make whatever arrangement for you to pay off that balance, and upon paying off that balance, then you close that credit card. So this is a conversation you would need to have with your credit institution. So normally you would have like a loan officer or accounts managers. You would go and you would talk with them. You would tell them what your concerns are. I'm in arrears on this thing. I want to clear my arrears. I want to clear my balance, and then I want to close. And I want to close my credit card. So those arrangements can be made with your financial institution. Normally, they should be reasonable people who also want their arrears to be cleared and who probably want the balance to be paid off. So this is a conversation you will need to have with your financial institution. And they should be reasonable enough to kind of sit down and have that conversation with you, right? But and you want to avoid having arrears on your credit card if, like going forward. So whatever even if you don't have, remember, you don't have to go pay the whole balance, They normally tell you have to make a minimum payment. So look to see what the minimum payment is on your statement. If you can't find it, ask a family member or somebody in the church who kind of know about these things, like what's my minimum payment, and just make that minimum payment at least every time, right? So you don't fall into arrears. Because the interest rate on credit card, it's high, and you don't want that to be kind of hitting you month after month. I hope that addresses your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Galaxy S9 has a question, so go right ahead. Ask your question.
Oh, that's what comes up this morning.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Williams, so are you saying that we should not buy on hire purchase or what?
No, I'm not saying you should not buy on hire purchase. What I'm saying, okay, when you take out a loan, try to avoid taking out loans where you can. So you want to kind of save up for your large purchases. So if you know you need some, let's say you need some chairs for your house. So you may say, okay, I need some chairs for my house. Let me start putting aside some money towards that. Maybe
I understand that. That's how to cut you off. But
No,
you have
right.
to realize that some of us can't put up fast enough to keep up with the demands of inflation. because you see it today for 4,000, just to give a figure. And by the next 3 months, you ain't even have half the money yet, and something else is added on to it. Or somebody else might go with the one that you wanted, and they're not getting any more till they can't give you a time when they will get something like that, and so on. So that's why I'm asking my question. If in a situation like that, it's not, if it's prudent to go ahead and buy and hire purchase, and then if anything, see if you can pay off for it in a quicker period of time rather than the time they would have given you.
And I totally understand what you're saying there. So maybe you can't save up all the money, but maybe you can save up a certain portion. So let's say it costs 50,000. So maybe you can come up with it, you can save the 50,000 in time for this thing. But maybe you can save a 5,000 or 10,000, and hence you're going to make the amount you're going to take on hire purchase less. And when you're going to go for that hire purchase, you have to look at your budget and make sure that this is something you can afford. So you have to look at your income and the rest of your expenses, and then you fit this thing is, and you see whether how this thing is going to put your finances. Is it going to push you into a shortage position? You know, can I afford to pay this thing? Can I comfortably afford to pay this thing? And you would know this thing better if you have your budget going. And remember, with this thing, this is a family or household thing. So like, where you may have other members of the family who are kind of good with this thing or have some experience or knowledge in this thing, you can always ask their assistants to kind of help you in doing your budget and stuff like that. You know, but so these are the things you'd want to do in order to kind of avoid the full impact of these higher purchases, because these things can be expensive sometimes in terms of the interest they charge. So where you can kind of come up with some of the money, you come up with some of the money and make sure that this is something you can afford. So you would look at your budget, you look at your income, you look at your expenses, you fit in this new loan and you see, okay, can I afford this thing? Can I afford this thing without putting extra pressure on myself? And you go forward on that, and you always seek the advice of, you know, people who you think care about you, people who you think love you, so that you know whether you're making the right decision in these kind of things. Because, you know, you want to look out for yourself, because these hire purchase companies, they're more interested in themselves and their own bottom line, you know, so you have to look out for yourself, right?
Okay, one last question before I go off the line and give somebody else a chance. When you take a loan, the interest that is charged to you is dependent on your age. Like somebody at 50 going to take a loan as opposed to somebody, like if they would give us at 50 a loan, I'm just saying, as opposed to somebody who is 20 something.
I don't know. In fact, I don't think it depends on your age. No, I do not believe it depends on your age. I do not know whether some institution may do that. They may give special rates for the, you know, senior citizens, but I'm not aware of that. But normally it's not. They would have like a standard rate. They would do their own internal assessment, and they would give you a rate based on their own internal assessment, right? So I don't think they might go easy on you because you're older, unless they have a special promotion. But normally they will give a rate based on what the internal assessment is.
That is if they give you the loan, because you might say you're closer to retirement, you don't have
right. So that's another factor you have to look at. If you're closer towards retirement, they may want their money before retirement, so they may give you a shorter period of time. So you'd have a bigger monthly payment, so that may put some pressure on you. Whereas with a younger person, because they're far from retirement, they might have more time and a lower monthly payment. So yes, it can factor in that sort of way. The older you are and near retirement, and they say that source of income going, she's going to go on retirement. She's going to get less money. She probably can't afford it. So let's get this back before retirement. So they might say, okay, so let's say the retirement age is 60 and you're 55. They might say, okay, let me give her 5 years. So we make sure we get all the money back before retirement. Whereas if it's like a 30-year-old person, then they say, okay, this person far from retirement, we can give them a longer period of time. So in that way, it can affect you certainly. Shorter period of time means the Other things being equal, if it's the same amount, it means you'd have a higher monthly payment versus a younger person who have more time, they would have a lower monthly payment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
Okay, Brother Williams, in line with the previous question that Sister Verna asked, would it be a better idea to go for a loan? The best case, of course, would be for you to pay upfront, save and pay, let's say for the living room suite. But let's say you were not able to do that and you need the new living room suite. Would it be a better idea to take a loan from the bank rather than hire purchase? Because I believe hire purchase, the interest rate is a lot higher than going to the bank. I don't know what would be your take on that.
That's a very good comment, Brother Sammy. Remember we talked about comparison shopping earlier on. Everything you do as regards your expenses, do comparison shopping. That's the point which Brother Sammy is eloquently making. So if you go to courts and they're going to give you a certain loan, find out what the terms of the loans are. So say what the interest rate be, how long, and what the monthly payment are. And with that information, you would then walk up the street or walk across the street. You would go to TDC Finance. You would say, okay, I need this and this loan. Tell me what the interest rate be, what the monthly payment is, and what the maturity is. And you will go to all the banks and all credit unions and do comparison shopping. The one which gives you the better rate, you go with that one, right? So yes, Brother Sammy, I totally agree. You do comparison shopping for everything, right? So even with your hire purchase, you go to courts, you find out interest rate, term, time, and you do your comparison shopping. You go up the street and you ask the people, I think, how much this thing be. And if you find you're getting a better rate at TDC Finance, then you say, okay, I take the loan and buy the living room suite for cash and pay the loan at TDC. But of course, in these things, you may need the advice of family members and friends and brothers and sisters in the church so as to guide your decision making. But that is certainly right. You do comparison shopping with everything. Yes.
Okay, there's a question from Muren or Clifford Pemberton. So go right ahead with your question.
Thank you, Elder Bedford. Brother Williams, thanks for the excellent presentation tonight. I learned so much, but I have about 3 questions here for you. Hope that you can assist me. Firstly, knowing that we are speaking primarily to a faith-based institution, organization, I realized when you asked the question, what would we do for surplus at the end of the month? Nobody says that we could give probably a double salary or more offering. I don't know if you endorse that. That's number 1. Number 2, though, on a more serious note, even though that is serious, I'm wondering the 6 months saving that you said, the 6 months. Let's be practical. We live in a COVID climate now. I'm wondering how practical it is. Most persons are living hand to mouth. How could we go about saving for that six months ahead in case you lose your job and different things and so forth? That's number 2. In the same vein, I don't want to recall you mentioning miscellaneous in the budget. Should the miscellaneous, I don't know if you put the both of them, the miscellaneous and the saving from your current saving, the electronic saving, that your salary goes there. I don't know if you factor in the miscellaneous there. So there are 3 things I've asked us now. 1, about the faith base. Tips on the 6 months saving ahead. Some persons guys have make it a month, right? And number 3, the miscellaneous. Is it factored in the normal saving? And 4thly, probably you could just comment on it. For somebody who is working fortnightly, would you still recommend a monthly budget? Thank you.
Okay, those are important questions. I'll try to take them in order. So the first with the tithe and the offering, yes, we are faith-based. I had mentioned the tithe and offering earlier up. So you have after you look at your income, you then create the first thing you cream off is your tithe and offering. But of course, if you have a surplus, maybe you want, depend on how God moves on your heart. So this is more, I would say, a matter between you and God. If you're motivated to give something extra to bring in an extra free will offering for that, then certainly that would be welcome and certainly promoted in a faith-based institution. So yes, but it's not something which I can kind of course I can stipulate it, but and I don't think because you've already returned the first fruits, the 10%. But if God moves on your heart to do something more, then certainly you should do something more. The second, what was the second one again, brother? Can you?
We have, I can't recall that you mentioned miscellaneous.
Oh, miscellaneous.
Yes, if you factor it in with the normal saving.
No, that's correct. I did not mention miscellaneous. There should be an item for miscellaneous. That is something which you do not take into consideration, which could kind of pop up. You know, but you want to keep that item kind of small because you don't want to kind of use that as an excuse for like increasing your expenses. So you would have something there, certainly. So yes, so that is advisable. Yes. Among your expenses, there should be something for miscellaneous. And you can make that 10% of your 10%, 5% of your expenses. So that's for like an unforeseen circumstance, something you didn't cater for, which kind of pop on, which you kind of need to do. But again, you don't want to use that line item so as to abuse your spending habit. So as these items pop up, you can ask yourself, is it necessary? Does it fit in with my long-term plan? Can I afford it? Where you have family members and friends and brothers and sisters, you raise the matter with them, you discuss it, and then you kind of, and if you're persuaded, then you kind of do the spending for miscellaneous items. So certainly, yes, that is a prudent and advisable thing to have in place because we can't foresee everything. There may be something that we haven't planned for which occurs. And that's where the miscellaneous comes in. So yes, that is advisable, something which should be done. Certainly, thank you. And there was something else?
Yes, Brother Williams, in the COVID climate.
Oh yes, that's right.
How could I put aside 6 months in advance? Please help me with that, man.
Yeah, I certainly hear you on that because emergency planning, what is recommended is that you go 6 months out. So you're on $1,000, it's $6,000 I'm going to save towards that. And you don't have to save all one time, you kind of save it over time. So bit by bit, as you get your monthly surplus, you take something from your monthly surplus. Remember our 75%, 25% rule. I remember with the 25%, you break that down into 15 and 10. Now, initially, the whole 25 is going to go towards your savings for that emergency fund until you get the desired amount. Now, the 6 months is a kind of rule of thumb, and that's probably more suitable for good times. But you want to have enough money so as to give you a kind of leg room in case something bad happens. So it doesn't have to be 6 months, maybe it can be 3 months or 4 months. But you want to say, okay, if the worst comes, let's say there's a sickness in the family, do I have enough money put aside so as to kind of cater for that? Or if I lose my job, would I have enough money so as to kind of cater for my various expenses without, starvation and stuff like that coming in? So in the literature, there was a 6 months where you can kind of reason out and say, okay, I can't do this 6 months now, so maybe I'll do 3 months. And when time gets better, I'll do this 6 months because that emergency funding, once you get the 6 months, so let's say on $1,000, you save till you get 6,000, and then you're going to leave that money in your current account. Certainly not even in your savings account, where they might give you like 1% interest or 2%. You're going to take that and put it in like a CD where you might get something a bit higher. You might get 2%, 2.53, and then that would come as a source of income going forward. That would be then interest income. So I certainly hear you on that, especially during this COVID stuff. So maybe you can't go to 6 months. So maybe you want to go for a shorter period during this time until things kind of turns out a bit better, and then you go for the 6 months. So certainly, of course.
And the final one was the budget. Why
for the
monthly, weekly?
Fortnightly.
Yeah.
So you would budget based on your payments. So yes, I would agree that also. Yeah. So if you're paid monthly, you would budget monthly. If you are paid fortnightly, then you would budget fortnightly. There's a question: we as Seventh-day Adventists would be wrong to get a loan? No. There's nothing wrong in getting a loan, but remember, nothing wrong in borrowing money. Nothing wrong with that. I've borrowed money. I will borrow money. But when you're borrowing money, it has to be for a good purpose. You just don't go and borrow money willy-nilly, because there's an expense associated with it. And certainly, people building their house, they would need a mortgage for that. You can't save to get a mortgage. Even some car loan, you would need a car loan. But you want to borrow loan for good purposes, things which are necessary, things which are going to kind of improve your productivity and boost your quality of life. You don't borrow loan for any, like people borrow loan. Well, we are Christians, so we don't go carnival, but people borrow loan to go and purchase carnival costumes. So people borrow loan for some ridiculous purposes. Whereas they should be saving towards those kind of things. So always saying you can get a loan. There's nothing wrong in getting a loan. Just make sure that the purpose is a good purpose. It's within your long-term plan, and make sure you do comparison shopping. So don't just go downtown and work in the first finance company and they give a higher interest rate, 18%, 25%. Do your shopping around. Go to all the banks, credit unions, finance companies, and compare the prices, see which one gives you the best deal, because you want to get value for money, right? That's what we are saying. But of course, we need to borrow loan. And we need loans, man. Good. Any other questions?
Brother Williams, there was a question in the chat earlier. It was similar to Brother Clifford's question. How can we save? How can we possibly save when you're working for minimum wage?
That's an important question. If you're working for minimum wage, but that's an important question. So you aren't working for much, but so that is understandable. It ain't much, but whatever you're working for, be it little or be it big, you don't want to spend all of it, right? You want to put aside something in savings, certainly for emergency, and certainly in terms of planning for your future retirement. If you're on minimum wage, you probably want to also, in addition to looking at controlling your expenses, you want to probably also look at how you can boost your income. So maybe you need to have a talk with your supervisor, your bosses. Of course, this is assuming you have good productivity at work. You go and say, boss, I've been working well at this. I've been doing what I'm told. And you ask for a raise. Once you put in out the work, you go up and you ask for a raise. So I've been doing my work properly, but make sure you're doing your work properly and you're of value to the organization. If you're not of value to the organization or you're doing your work properly, then you want to get that in place before you go and ask for a raise, so you go above minimum wage. Also, you can look at other sources of income. So maybe you want to take on an extra job so as to supplement that income. So you go around and look for something else which you can do, which would not affect your performance in your present job, for which you can kind of gain additional income. And sometimes these things are easy to kind of say in theory. I know it's hard to kind of accomplish sometimes in reality, but this is something we have to do. It's a hard life, and you have to kind of have positive thinking and put your best effort towards it. I know it's hard, but let's be positive and and go forward with the positiveness God gives us. Life is hard, but we can't make that overwhelm us, right? But you want to save something. You don't want to be spending. You don't want to be living from paycheck to paycheck, regardless of how much you earn. Even though it's a minimum, You want to say, okay, at least let me put aside something. Maybe it's not as much as I want to put aside, but let me put aside something because I don't know. Maybe I will fall ill. Or maybe they might fire me from the job, so I don't have a job. I would need something to kind of carry me until I can find something else. So you want to save something. It means that you would have to kind of, keep a very tight budget, and you'd have to really explore other income opportunities. And you pray and you ask advice from family and friends, people who look out for your interests. And God is good. Remember, God says, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open unto you. That's a serious piece of scripture there, If you're looking for something, you will find it. So yeah, okay. Any other?
Okay, this Samuel has a question. Go right ahead. Good evening.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, my question is, right, I have a small business. Plus, I have a job, right? A side job.
Right.
My question is, the side job pays Social Security for me, right? In my small business, the money I also pay Social Security. Can I put it in another place like the bank, like an income or whatsoever? Is that the best way, or to add to the Social Security?
So you have a decision to kind of make there. So you would have to look at. So that's a decision you have to make. So you kind of look at what you're gonna. You need to talk to the people at Social Security to kind of find out what you're gonna get back from them over time. Right, and then you need to kind of look at the possible avenues you have to kind of invest your money and what you're going to get back from that. And then you have to compare the two. But my preference, if I was in your place and I have a job which is kind of giving me there's Social Security payments coming from that, so I expect something at the end of the day, I probably want to put it in something different. But you have to make sure you have the right investment skills. So if you're going to let me say you want to buy shares, stocks in companies, you would need to be familiar with financial statement to a certain extent. So as to you're putting them in the right company, you're going to put them in company that don't pay dividends, You want to put them in company that's going to pay consistent dividends over time. So when you're old, those shares will be bringing in dividends for you, coming in addition to your Social Security money. If you want to buy treasury bills, that is government paper, again, you need to kind of understand how government operate, how they manage their finances, so as to choose the right government treasury bills, because some government give haircuts sometimes, and you don't want to be in a case where you invest in that government and next thing you hear in haircut. So these are these are the things you need to take into consideration, right? I hope that sheds some light on it, Brother Samuel.
Okay, probably one more question. I don't think there are any more questions. What about insurance savings plan? Let's say, for example, you may be saying in 10 years' time, I want to, let's say, buy a car. I get an insurance saving plan that matures in 10 years. Is that a good idea, or should I just be diligent and save?
Okay, that's a good question, because I know that there are some insurance plans out there, and I know that they are being promoted. So I can tell you what I personally do. So when they bring these insurance plan to me and say in 10 years, you will get this and this amount of money. So I want to know how much I pay now into that plan monthly and what the payments are going forward. So once I have that information, then I kind of look at what I'm doing presently with my money. So I'm taking my money and I'm investing it in certain places and I'm getting a return. So then I compare the two, your return versus my return. If I find my return is better, then I stick with mine. If I find your return is better, then I go with yours. If it is a case where you don't have the skills currently so as to make your own investment, maybe you want to kind of put it in a place where they can do it for you. So those are some of the considerations you would have to take when making a decision like that. You have to do comparison. Comparison shopping is always important. Try to do it in all things. Where you do not have the adequate knowledge, background, and experience so as to make an informed decision, discuss it with family members and friends who have your interests at heart. There might be brothers in the church who you know may have that background experience. Talk to them about it, and most people will be very willing to help, you know, well, I would assume. So you do comparison shopping, their versus mine, and whatever is available out there. So I think Brother Bedford said that was the last question. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for your feedback. I know that God will continue to bless you, and I hope that this will be useful going forward as you seek to do proper money management and retirement planning. Thank you.
Brother Williams, on behalf of all of the gentlemen and everybody present this evening, I want to say special thanks to you for being our facilitator this evening and providing such valuable information that is necessary in these tough economic times. Some of these things will require us to go back home and do some serious evaluation and changes. The 75-25% rule, 6 months of saving, or at least 3 months of saving, comparing prices, things like cooking at home rather than buying in town, having a second job, using our budget, tracking our budget, do not commit to any future monthly recurring expenses, and several other wise and useful tips. We want to thank you for giving us of your time tonight, and may God continue to bless you as you continue to serve humanity and serve God. Now, let me thank everybody again for being here tonight. I know, as well as, in addition to my being blessed and informed, you would have been inspired, and let us determine to go home and to give of our best as we use God's resources. In parting, I just want to leave a text, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 and 10, and it says, "Honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine." May God bless us all. I'm going to ask Pastor to probably give any final notice that he would want to present, and then I'll ask him to just give the closing prayer. So thanks again to everybody. Thanks, Brother Williams. And just remember, tomorrow evening, we have our Wednesday evening service, The Power of Prayer. Let us tune in and be richly blessed. God bless. Let me turn over to Pastor this time. Okay, Pastor may have stepped out briefly. So Elder Strawn, kindly just read the closing prayer.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay, sorry, Pastor. Go right ahead.
All right. Yes, indeed, I was listening, very informative. Coming from a business background, being part of the credit union system, some of the advices that were given there were very important. Also, credit unions now seem to be the better way, based on my experience and knowledge. Credit unions now are doing compulsory saving, so that if you borrow a loan from the credit union and you're supposed to pay back every month $500, $50 out of that $500 is your savings. So at the end of the life of the loan, let's say it's for 2 years, that's $50 every month. That's $1,200 after the life of the loan. So you have something after you would have finished the loan to receive after the loan. Also, we need to look at when we are borrowing money, whether you're paying interest on the reducing balance or whether it's compound interest and all those things need to come into play. And so I just want to thank Brother Williams for his presentation. Indeed, that is very important. Another thing I want to deposit is that a lot of folks who are working, let's say you have a, let's say I cut grass as a business. They don't register their business. And so when they reach retirement, there's nothing for them. And so I want to encourage all those who are, you know, self-employed, the farmers, make sure your business is registered and all of that. So thanks, Brother Williams, for your presentation. Indeed, we need to be more wise with money. The Chinese say, we, the Black people, know how to get rid of money. In other words, we like to spend, And if you are going down Bastille and you see a sale at, let's say, Lucky Store, 40% off of such and such, it is not in your budget. You have not budgeted for it. It is not that you have saved the 40%. The money that you would spend at Lucky, that's money that you did not budget for. So we need to be mindful when we have our budget to stick to our budget. Just to remind us that this Thursday, my vacation starts, and Pastor Stanton Adams would be in my place in the districts, and I'll post his number so that if you need anything, you can talk with Pastor Adams. I will be on vacation from the 9th of July to the 10th of August. Later on in the evening, I would send out the e-visit list. I have tomorrow morning from 10 to 12, that's one list, and then from 4 to 6, that's another list. So please take a note at the list, take a look at it, see when your name is on, and you will join at that time. I know there's a lot of folks are coming on all at the same time. If your time is from 4 to 4:10, that's when you would log in. So please take note of the list. And Men's Week has been a blessing thus far. I pray that we continue to log in tomorrow night, Friday night, and on Sabbath. Let us support the men in their endeavors. And I pray that God would bless all of us as we continue to forge ahead, as we continue to indeed hold each other together and to be financially wise in our doings. Let us pray, loving God and Father in heaven. We want to thank you so much for your grace and your mercies. We want to thank you tonight for this presentation of money management. Indeed, it is good economics, and we need to learn as a people. Too many of us are spending money outside of ourselves, and we are not learning how to save. This consumerism society is killing us. And so I pray that we would take the advice from Brother Williams. Wise financial management is what we need. We thank you, oh God, for him and his presentation. We thank you for all those who logged on. And may we be a better people as a result of learning how to manage our money. We thank you and we praise you. And may all go to sleep tonight knowing that you're watching over them. In Jesus' precious name, amen and amen.
Okay. Pleasant evening, everyone. God bless.
Good night, everyone.
Pleasant evening. God bless.